Hourly segment is brought to you by Health Quest Radio with Dr. David Kolbaba. Saturday mornings at 11. Visit healthquestradio.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Just updating the situation with the Biden Incorporated investigation, such as they are. When is a denial not a denial? This is a question we have to ask ourselves after the testimony offered by David Weiss when he appeared before the House Judiciary Committee was made public. The whole matter of whether or not Weiss sought authorization to charge Hunter Biden and was granted it or denied it was, of course, part of the subject of the inquiry. Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, has said unequivocally that David Weiss in full control. David Weiss continued to insist he indeed did have full control to bring any prosecution anywhere. But when he was confronted by the fact that U.S. attorneys in other jurisdictions where he sought cooperation refused to cooperate it, he admitted that the authority he needed wasn't granted. Quoting Weiss here, it wasn't granted. They said, follow the process. I follow the process. I asked for something, and in that conversation, they didn't give it to me. An agreement. Estrada was the U.S. attorney in California, Graves in D.C. They refused to assist in prosecuting Hunter Biden. And then, obviously moving up the food chain, which is the point here. They didn't give me that authorization. So then he was asked, when you ask for something and they didn't give it to you, what is that? And he responded, you want me to say it's a denial, but it's not. Not when I know that weeks later I was specifically told you can proceed. As Jonathan Turley reports, George Washington University law professor, Weiss insisted he was asked to proceed with this process. We're asking you to go through the process. From my mind, it was a sequencing event. It's not a denial in any way, shape, or form. That's the way I interpret it. And Turley characterized this as positively Nietzschean, which I agree. How did you know that weeks later you were going to be given the you can proceed when you were denied? You couldn't have known that. He didn't say he didn't say, though, they said we're denying, we're not going to sign on to this, but at some point we will. He didn't say they said that. He said they just denied him. Weeks later, I was told to proceed, so it's not a denial. Well, it was a denial. I mean, we're back into Clintonian land here in terms of the definition of words. It was is back then, and it's denial today. For more on all this, we're pleased to be joined by Greg Jarrett, legal and political analyst for Fox News Channel. He's got a new book, The Constitution of the United States and Other Patriotic Documents. Greg Jarrett, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan, good to be with you and Amy.
Give us your handle on the state of play with these Biden Incorporated investigations and this, parsing of words and meanings of words from David Weiss.
Well, it's laughable. It's ludicrous. I mean, David Weiss tried to weasel out of his previous efforts to deceive Congress. He sort of doubled down on lies. In a July letter, he said, oh, no, I never, in the previous year in the spring, asked for special counsel status, grudgingly admitting in his testimony last week that he did. He said he had full authority and, was forced to admit he didn't. and he tried to parse words as you've just described. And so, look, the bottom line is that there's a protection racket at the Department of Justice, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI to protect the Bidens. And Weiss never had any intention of bringing any charges against Hunter Biden or his father, the evidence of which shows he was complicit in the son's influence peddling schemes. That's why Weiss sat on this for 5 long years and did nothing. He was only forced by a federal judge in Delaware to bring the gun charges. And he says, oh, yes, we're still looking at tax evasion, tax fraud, perhaps money laundering, other things, which anybody else in America would have been long ago charged with. Weiss has no intention of bringing charges on that. He's going to sit on it and let more statute of limitations run.
Right, and I mean, he's also sort of characterizing that plea deal that was scuttled by the judge. It was always our intention to move forward and so on and so forth, when the judge clearly felt that that wasn't the case.
Yeah, I mean, Weiss slipped into an ancillary document a complete immunity agreement for Hunter Biden, that he gets to walk scot-free after he pled guilty to gun charges that would have resulted in the prosecutor saying, oh, no need for any jail or prison time here. So the fix was in to protect Hunter Biden because Joe Biden is also involved. And I think the evidence that has been developed by Comer's committee makes that abundantly clear.
Yeah, so what about the House subpoenas for Hunter and James Biden? Is that going to lead to anything?
Well, I'm pretty skeptical that it will. Hunter's lawyer, of course, he's been subpoenaed, insists, oh, my client's eager to testify, and then he threw in a caveat, at the right time. Translation, never. There'll be all kinds of ridiculous demands, delay tactics, vacuous excuses, because Hunter can't testify. If he did, he'd either have to tell the truth and get indicted or lie under oath, which constitutes even more crimes. The problem for the committee, though, Amy, is the Congress has no power to enforce these subpoenas. Only Joe Biden's own Department of Justice can do that, and I promise you, they won't.
Right, and so this is just run out the clock, get past next November, and see where we stand, right?
Exactly. That's precisely what's going on.
And on the Trump side of the equation, obviously they have prosecutors that will move and judges that won't grant continuances and so forth. What's your expectation of the 4 trials, if excluding the civil one in New York that's ongoing? Of those four trials, how many will be concluded before next November?
Well, it's possible all 4 will. Whether they will hold up an appeal is a completely different equation, assuming there are any convictions. Look, the one in New York by Alvin Bragg, the district attorney, is utterly ludicrous. And so is the racketeering case in Georgia. That doesn't mean they won't gain convictions, but in the end, I can't see how those cases stand up on appeal. In the Jack Smith special counsel case, the classified documents in Florida, the J6 stuff in Washington, D.C., those are certainly more difficult cases to defend, which is not to say that Donald Trump doesn't have legitimate defenses to them, because he does.
I want to get to your book. Actually, it's perfect timing, because just before you came on, we were talking a little bit about constitutional law and the McCulloch v. Maryland decision in the early 1800s that established the supremacy of federal law, because a historian who contributes to our show was making the point that we had nullification then prior to that Supreme Court decision, and it seems like we have nullification today with respect to prosecutors and our criminal code, with respect to immigration law, with respect to drug law at the state level versus the federal level. So nullification alive and well, despite the founding documents and the interpretation of said by the Supreme Court.
That's true, and I tackle some of this in my new book, The Constitution and Other Patriotic Documents. As we have continuously sought a more perfect union. Perfection is unattainable because we are intrinsically imperfect people, but that doesn't mean that we haven't throughout our history tried to correct mistakes made, and we have. Look at all the amendments to the Constitution. Immediately the Bill of Rights after the Constitution was signed. So this book is really a tribute, I think, to the many patriots who made America great, this luminous beacon of hope for liberty, prosperity, and justice throughout the world. And, you can read our nation's most important documents, letters, speeches. These are things that change the course of history, inspiring words, galvanizing ideas. It shaped America, our virtues, our aspirations, our ideals, and I don't think enough people truly understand that, which is why I wrote the book.
In the immortal words of Thomas Paine, what we obtain too cheaply, we esteem too lightly. And maybe some people in 2023 America have come to all the benefits of this country too cheaply and esteem them too lightly.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And look, in the book, I do not promote an agenda. It has, unlike any other book, the full Constitution, all of the Bill of Rights, and thoroughly explained. It contains essential conservative documents as well as liberal ones. Among my favorites, the speeches by Booker T. Washington, all the way through to Ronald Reagan's famous Berlin speech, tear down this wall, and the wall came crumbling down, so did the Soviet Empire. So the book as a whole is philosophically patriotic.
How many Biden speeches are in there?
None.
And real quick, do you think Biden's going to make it to the election? I mean, we have got DeSantis and Governor Newsom. They're debating on Fox on November 30th with Sean Hannity as a moderator. Do you think it's going to happen?
He is so old and feeble, and I don't mean that in chronological age, but I think we've all seen his diminished mental acuity on stage almost every time he speaks, which is why his handlers at the White House try to limit it. They put him in front of a teleprompter, and they even have to, cue him for his gestures and so forth. He seems lost and confused, and I find it so alarming that this is the leader of our country, the leader of the free world, and I have serious doubts that he can make it all the way to the nominating convention or the election.
Greg Jarrett's legal and political analyst for Fox News Channel. His new book, The Constitution of the United States and Other Patriotic Documents, collected and explained by Greg Jarrett, #1 New York Times bestselling author. Actually, your book reminds me of another great book from a bygone era, Bill Safire's Lend Me Your Ears, which was that was a great book, great, all the speeches and his analysis of that. So great offering, The Constitution of the United States and Other Patriotic Documents. Greg Jarrett, thanks so much.
Dan and Amy, thanks so much for having me on. Take care.
Thank you. Have a great day. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Are you paying too much for term life insurance? There is a tremendous price war in the term life industry. Rates have dropped dramatically in the past few years. For example, a man age 45, non-smoker, $1 million